Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for September 25th, 2018. Madam Clerk, would you read closed session agenda for us?
Item number 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Cheryl Straub and Anna Lewis versus Calaveras County et al. Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV43036, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund et al. Versus Calaveras County et al. Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV43043. Item number 2.
Wait, hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Are there any public comments at this time in this item? Seeing none, we'll move on. Please read the second item.
Item number 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Howard Todd Barr versus County of Calaveras, Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV42976.
Are there any public comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll move to closed session. Good morning and welcome to the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors meeting for September 25th, 2018. Let's all rise if you can. Salute our flag. Al, can you please lead us this morning?
Certainly. Please follow me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, can you please read out the results from our closed session this morning?
Report of closed session. Item number 1, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation. 1, Cheryl Straub and Anna Lewis versus Calaveras County et al. Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV43036. Number 2, Calaveras Cannabis Legal Defense Fund et al. Versus County of Calaveras et al. Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV43043. Board action, no reportable action taken. Item number 2, pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D1, conference with legal counsel regarding existing litigation, Howard Todd Barr versus County of Calaveras, Calaveras County Superior Court case number 18CV42976. No reportable action taken.
Thank you. Moving on to announcements.
Announcements. This is a time for board members and county staff to provide updates of upcoming county events that may be of interest to the public.
Are there any board announcements this morning?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I noticed that Supervisor Clapp's not here. Is there a reason given?
It's my understanding he's attending a funeral this morning.
Okay.
Supervisor Mills? You had, no? Okay. Is there any staff announcements this morning? Member of staff? Okay. Moving on, we'll move to recognitions and acknowledgements.
Adopt a proclamation recognizing National Voter Registration Day on September 25th, 2018.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. Today I get to read a proclamation recognizing September 25th, 2018 as National Voter Registration Day. Whereas one of our most fundamental and sacred rights of our democracy is the right to vote. In order for our government to function effectively and respond to the needs of our people, citizens must play a role in shaping it. Each year on National Voter Registration Day, we reaffirm the strong sense of civic duty among our people and encourage friends, family members, and neighbors to get involved by registering to vote. Whereas today, National Voter Registration Day, we recommit to exercising one of the most precious rights we have as Americans and take seriously our responsibility to make our voices heard in the next election cycle.
Any board comments? Rebecca, you have anything to say?
Thank you for recognizing today as National Voter Registration Day. The close of registration is October 22nd, and we encourage anyone who's registering to vote for November 6th election to come out and vote. In recognition of today, under the gazebo, we will be registering anybody who comes through and wants to register to vote. We'll be out there to do so. Vote by mail ballots are going out October 8th. The last day to register, I said, was October 22nd. However, now that we do same-day registration, that registration date only applies for those who'd like to vote at the polls or by mail. Everyone else, they can come and register in our office after that date. However, they also have to vote in our office. So if you register after the 22nd, that has to take place here in San Andres. Here with me is Amy Yepes, our election coordinator. So this is Amy, and anything election related, Amy's had her hands on. Robin Glanville, who's serving as the clerk to the board, is the assistant registrar of voters. And anyways, we're a small team, but here we are.
What a good team. Any public comments on this item?
Susan Morse. I'm resident of Alameda County. That's good. I'm going backwards. Calaveras County, Angels Camp, and I have another hat. I also work with the Election Integrity Project of California, state of California, and I'd like to add something. First of all, I want to thank our registrar and their team. They do a fine job, and they work really hard, and they listen to me when I'm giving them a bad time. But I wanted to add one more thing. Not only do we need other people to register to vote, but also many of us have registered to vote many years ago. Things have changed. Maybe our signatures have changed or whatever, and if they are, for instance, vote by mail voters, their signatures may not match because they're outdated. And so to help the registrar's office, it's a good idea. If you registered a long time ago, just go check with them and look at your original voter registration and see if it's up to date. Now, I know that last year, or earlier this year, I think they sent out a confirmation card, but in the event people didn't send that back, it still might be an issue. So the bottom line is, not only do we need to vote, but we need to protect our vote, and we also need to make sure that our registration is in good order. That's all. Thank you.
Other public comments?
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Devil Springs. I'd just like to say how important it is for me to be able to vote, because my vote and my ability to pay taxes gives me the right to stand up and speak out and say whatever I want. My vote expresses who I support in a political scheme, but that's only a part of voting and paying taxes, which I think is every person's not only right but responsibility, because when you're not really a part of the solution, you're almost always a part of the problem. So thanks for voting, everyone, and keep it up.
Good morning, Vicki Ranke, Calaveras County Republican Party. And I do want to thank you for recognizing Voter Registration Day and encourage people to register to vote. Don't be complacent. Don't think, well, my vote doesn't count. It does count. If you want things to change in your state, in your county, you have to register and get involved and vote. So thank you.
Good morning. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I really thank the people that are working on the program for encouraging people to vote. And but what's not mentioned sometimes is the responsibility to know what you're voting on. Freedom comes with a price tag. It's called responsibility. Everybody's heard of freedom of the press. Does anyone here think that freedom of the press would include making up news stories and presenting it as fact, that's fraud. That's an abuse of freedom of the press. Well, the same thing goes for other freedoms that we have. As we have freedom of speech, we have to be careful what we say. We can't say things to demean people. There are laws against that. And in the case of voting, sometimes the ballot is so cluttered with things to vote on that the average person really doesn't have the time to do the necessary studies to find out who would be a good candidate or not. What I do is I'm not sure who to vote for. I don't vote. If you don't know what you're voting for, don't vote. You could do damage. Above all else, do no harm. So, in encouraging people to vote, we want to also encourage them to be responsible voters. Thank you.
Good morning, Board. George Fry. I'm reminded of a story 34 years ago with regard to voting. Two individuals ran for District 4, and when the ballots were counted, one individual had seven votes more than the other. So it was within the realm of recount, and the recount was the other person won by one vote. That's how important your vote is. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the board. I'm looking for a motion, or Dennis, you have a comment?
Yeah, just a comment, Robin. I'd like to give a shout out that you are looking for poll workers, for people to volunteer to work in the polls. So again, if you're interested in being involved in the political process, this would be a great opportunity to get a firsthand view of what the voting process looks like. And I encourage anyone, if you're not willing to work in the polls themselves, maybe working for the Election Integrity Project or something else, be involved in the voting process. You will learn so much in doing that and understand how valuable it really is to have that integrity. So thank you for what you're doing. And with that, Chair, I will make the motion.
Supervisor Oliveira, your light's on.
Yeah, I would second the motion by Supervisor Mills.
We have a motion by Supervisor Mills, a second by Supervisor Oliveira. Any other comments? Not, call for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes 4-0-1.
Now, therefore be it proclaimed, on this day, the Calaveras County Board of Supervisors proclaim September 25th, 2018 as National Voter Registration Day and encourage all citizens ensure they are registered to vote. Passed and adopted by the Board of Supervisors of County of Calaveras, State of California, this 25th day of September 2018. Thank you very much.
Rebecca, you want to come up? Rebecca, you and Amy want to come up and accept the proclamation? Yeah, she has to be in the picture.
Robin, I can take it. Here. One, two, three.
Moving on to public comments.
Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on the consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the next order of business. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued as the last item of business in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of comments to be heard.
Good morning. I'm Kathy Mazzaferro, and I'm here representing the Calaveras County Arts Council. It is on your agenda, but I wanted to personally take the time to come and say thank you, because in your agenda is a resolution recognizing the Calaveras County Arts Council as the Calaveras County Arts Council as recognized by the county. I've given you packets ahead of time with programs from the music that we bring to the county, different arts programs, our devotion to arts education programs for all of the schools here in Calaveras County. We have some exciting things coming up. Another thing that I've been working with CAO
Mr.
Lutz.
Chairman, I apologize for interrupting.
Certainly.
And I know what he's going to say, and
Right.
this is on our agenda. If
And
you're gonna
I'm
comment,
going out
yeah,
of line.
You have to wait till it comes up on our agenda.
Okay. I
You
also
can
had another
speak at
place.
that time.
I can speak at that time. All right.
All right. Boy, I didn't want to do that.
No, it's okay. It's, you know, it's just at 65, you tend to go, yeah, I think I'll jump over that and ask forgiveness instead of approval.
No,
No, they're not going to vote no.
you have to give to her.
I will tell them that we're making an improvement, not asking them for money.
Good morning, Neil McEwen, Calaveras resident. Another week has passed and the Nexus study still hasn't been published, but who's counting? Congratulations are in order for passing the new rules last week without actually publishing them as amended for the minimum 72 hours prior to passing an agendized item. Way to go. Chalk that up to another in a long list of Brown Act violations. Staying the course and not being distracted by public input is definitely this board's strong suit. As hastily as they were passed, any reasonable person would expect they'd be posted for all to read by today. But then again, they probably haven't finished being written yet. What a conundrum. Supervisor Oliveira, you did not vote to pass the rules as amended, but it must be stated how disappointing it was that you voted to strip the public of their right to make points of order. Supporting any of these blatant authoritarian measures demonstrates flagrant disregard for the oath of office you all swore to uphold. Let's go ahead and set aside for the moment Clyde's multiple criminal convictions and all the civil cases levied against him. We can get to those later. Clyde has shown such disdain for his oath that he has publicly stated his willingness not to uphold it. On his campaign site, there are pictures of him with Tom McClintock as though he endorses Clyde, except he hasn't. There are also other photos that suggest he has been endorsed by the Area 12 Agency on Aging, which again, he hasn't. A statement from Kathy Topol, Associate Director of Common Grounds, reads, quote, "There are so many lies in this post, but what do you expect? Allow me to clear a few things up here. One, CLAP has nothing to do with providing meals to our seniors in our community. These meals are provided by Common Ground Senior Services. 2, CLAP had nothing to do with partnering with Mark Twain Medical Center to prepare the meals that are provided by Common Ground Services. 3, never in my 15-year history of working with the Area 12 Agency on Aging have I ever seen someone running for office use Area 12 to promote their campaign. 4, CLAP was the supervisor that was going to hold Common Ground's Meals on Wheels program funding hostage when a 4-wheel drive car was donated to them so that they could deliver meals to shut-ins in the snow. So to those of you that are commenting on what a good job he is doing, please learn your facts first so you don't fall for more of these kinds of lies. Finally, as for proof that he was sleeping during the budget meeting on September 11th, please visit the 2-hour, 54-minute, and 9-second mark on YouTube while the auditor was speaking. No respect.
You have to.
Good morning, Beth Whitkey, D5. I'm disappointed that my supervisor isn't here this morning. I actually heard that he was escorted off the Marbell parking lot this weekend for trespassing, being combative at, excuse me? Anyway, I'm really upset with his inability to represent my district, and I was going to call for his resignation today because I find his behavior to be absolutely deplorable. And I would like to get somebody up on this board from my district who genuinely cares about the county and can be bothered to stay awake during meetings and comport himself in a professional manner out in the world. I'm surprised that we haven't read about this in the Enterprise. I think that the board should get together and censure him for his behavior. Thank you.
Good morning, Bonnie Newman from Double Springs. I have 3 points I'd like to touch upon today. First, what we talked about, you all talked about, made decisions about consent items, not the public not being able to pull consent items. I think it's an attempt to slide things by the public when you just have a consent item. Like we had the issue with the jail contract for the janitorial. That would have just slid by, and it didn't need to be. It shouldn't have been. I think the asphalt factory was on the consent agenda at one point. It's important that the public have the opportunity to oppose what our government tries to pull over on us sometimes. Second thing is a point of order. If people were abusing the point of order, it should have been explained at that time what the point of order is and how it can be used, so it wasn't repeatedly abused over and over. That would have solved a lot of problems. And lastly, go back to the 3-minute rule. That has only been in effect for the last 2.5 years when the cannabis issue became so notorious, and there were so many people speaking, wanting to speak. And at that time, Cliff Edson would ask the public in the chambers, how many want to speak at public comments? And depending on how many hands were raised, 6 or 8, he'd say, okay, 5 minutes. If there was 10, 20, he'd say 3-minute rule. So it has not been in effect very long, and it was used by Cliff Edson just as a way to monitor how long public comments would be. But then last year, it just was 3 minutes, 3 minutes. And we had times when there was only 2 or 3 people speaking. So I think you should have a policy or procedure where you ask how many people wish to speak, let them come up. They used to have a signature, a sign-in, and those people get to speak. And if there's a few of them, let them speak 5 minutes, because I'm telling you, I got some good stories to tell, but I'm not going to bless you with them because it's going to take longer than 3 minutes. And I hate cutting off a story in the middle of it because then you never get to the punchline. And most of the time we come up here and speak, we don't get to the punchline, so you don't understand what we're up here for. Thank you.
Sorry, guys, I'm back again. Where do I begin? First of all, I haven't been here for the last couple weeks because I was sick, homesick, coughing, flu, the whole thing. You wouldn't have wanted me here. And I actually didn't watch much of the hearings either because I didn't feel well. However, coming back today and hearing the bashing of individual supervisors, to me, it feels like we're being disrespectful to these chambers. This is a quasi-judicial operation here. We have beefs, we should say them, but to bash people over and over again is just disrespectful. And I mean, I don't know what your rules are. I didn't really pay attention, sorry. So I should have, but I hope somehow this stops because I think we can all get our messages across without bashing one another. As far as being able to go in booths, I think we have the right to have booths for various reasons. And in Marvell, one of the people mentioned that they came up, they trespassed. A booth was there, and it was Supervisor's booth he was trespassing. There's booths there all the time, and it's a huge parking lot. It's a public place. I don't know how many stores are in there, but there's multiple stores. It's close to the Burger King and Starbucks and all over the place. And I was wondering, was the person that's speaking, was she actually there and witnessed somebody being disrespectful or someone doing something that should have been asked to leave? And has anyone checked with the sheriff also? Because it seems like constantly people, I've been in booths in parking lots. And, there's decorum and you have to be, respectful to others, but we're allowed. So I don't understand why we continue to just bash over and over again. This is a small community. We want to get the word out. We support we're supporting different people at different times. That's the American way. So I just ask that all of us, stop bashing one another. If we disagree, we talk about the disagreements. These are issues. They don't need to be personal attacks over and over again. Thank you.
Good morning, Vicki Reinke, speaking for myself. But we all know what's going on in our society right now and what's going on in our federal judge. I guess I just want to get up here because we have an audience and say, this is a tactic. Beware, people. Do not fall for it. That's how they win. They think they can defame you, call you names, and it'll stick for whatever reason. So please think for yourselves. And a lot of this is not true. It's false information, and I don't appreciate it as a citizen of Calaveras County. Thank you.
Good morning, Terry McBride, District 2. I'd like you to think about something at the 9 o'clock comments, which are meant to be for general. A lot of people take time off of work to come. They can't sit here all day. So you should allow those that need to be able to speak of an agenda item to go ahead and talk, so then go back to work. Remember the taxes, pay your wages and all this stuff. I think that the folks coming up here and bashing are so fed up. They're not being heard. And this is how they're getting heard. And it is the First Amendment. It offers us that right. I hear people get up here and I'm like, holy cow. I do not agree with them in any way, but they have the right to speak. That is America. We have that right. We also have the right to do judicial process and all that business. But mostly I want to suggest that, allow a 9 a.m. If somebody is like, I have to get to work, I can't stay here all day. Let them talk about an agenda item, because that will let you get more perspective from more other people, which many of us are feeling like we're being shut out. And what Bonnie was saying about that 5 minutes, she is absolutely correct. You could say in respect to the time, we don't have a lot of time, so could you please keep it to 3 minutes, and if you have a really valid, pertinent information, then maybe go to the 5. But what we're being is censored. That's exactly how we feel about it. We don't like it, because we do live in America. But please do think about 9 a.m. and allowing folks that have to go to work so they can feed their family as such to be able to speak about an agenda item, because once in a while that would help a great deal. Thank you.
Michael Falvey, District 2. As you guys probably know of, and ladies, since this board was seated, I've been a semi-regular observer, and I can truthfully say that the first bashing I saw emanated from the end of the supervisors' chairs. My right, your left. So that's where the first bashing came from. Screaming at other supervisors, a slight obscenity. No big deal, but it started there. Number 2, I don't like the rumor mills either, and this rumor mill about, I'll just say, the Marvell parking lot. To me, that's what it is. It's a rumor. Ms. Topol's letter, however, is not a rumor. I read it from her, signed by her, from the District Agency 12 or whatever it's called. I read her letter. she was not happy with what emanated from this board. And Mr. Chairman, County Council, fellow board members, I'd be a little concerned if you had a fellow member sitting up there lying in the campaign re-election. If you want to, if you don't want bashing coming your way, you gotta rein that kind of stuff in. Marvell is rumor. Miss Topel's is truth.
Good morning. Ralph Copeland, District 4, Copperopolis. I guess we're approving a budget today. Just want to run this by you guys. This is not name calling or anything. On last year in October, Supervisor Mills said in his presentation that money has not swayed his recommendation to ban cannabis cultivation. He said the county had $30.3 million in reserves and $127 million in its investment portfolio, according to the 2017-18 budget. Then, that was from the Calaveras Enterprise. Then a month later, on 11/9/17, the Enterprise wrote that Mr. Lutz had to correct Supervisor Mills, saying that the $127 million is part of an investment portfolio, and $30.3 million is in the designated fund account, is applied to in the budget should a program need it. Lutz said about $12.5 million could be used freely. It seems like Mr. Lutz did complete Economics 101. It seems like Mr. Dennis Mills didn't. Next I have is a picture of Dennis Mills sweeping Little John Road. Okay?
You address the board, please.
What's that?
Address the board.
Oh, okay. And his handler, Jack Cox, wrote, with constituents in mind, he threw a push broom in his car and stopped by and swept up the gravel. And this was in the Next Door, our local website. Julie Flores mentioned, we drove up as someone was handing him a broom out of their car. So Jack Cox says that Mr. Mills pulled the broom out of his car, and then Julie Flores said that someone handed him a broom out of another car. It's just little things like this, little lies, little fabrications that add up and makes us really see who our supervisors are. Thank you very much.
Any other public comments?
I look behind me.
Again, if we're going to do public comments, we need to get in line and not wait till the last speaker. Thank you.
Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I don't have anybody to bash right now, but there's two items that our association is concerned about. One of them is the unnecessary cost in building homes or construction in Calaveras County. And we've been trying to gather intelligence from people who are experts in the field. And it's been a slow process because some of this expense is not opposed. One item that is worth investigating is earthquake requirements for construction in our county. Our county is not in an earthquake zone, so requiring contractors and owners to construct according to the earthquake safety regulations adds thousands and thousands of dollars to the cost of these homes. Yet everybody seems to be quiet about it. And I think this should be looked into, and perhaps whatever modification that needs to be done in the law, state or local, we need to start working on that. And so to try to make our homes more affordable without harming anything. Now the second thing is a positive thing. We've been coming to these meetings for over 10 years now, and we've seen what happens. And one of the things we're grateful for is elected public officials, particularly the assessor and the controller auditor. The fact that they're elected changes their, it doesn't change their duties that much as a department head, but changes their loyalties and changes their responsibility, who they're responsible to. As elected officials, they're responsible to the constituents who elected them. I mean, that's a no-brainer. So if information, if providing truthful information is not received by the board in a positive way, and the controller is appointed, she'll go by the will of the board. But if she's elected, she'll stick with the truth. And this has been done. Then on the case of the assessor, same thing. She reduced the taxes on the people because the law required it, but the board really didn't like to see their budget being reduced. And she got a lot of criticism, but she hung there because she was elected official. Thank you.
I don't want to take up the public's time. I just was asked by the board and by the public last month to report out on where we're at with marijuana eradications. I didn't get a chance to get down here in time for staff comments, so I'll wait until you guys are done with public comment.
Yeah, why don't we finish public comment?
Yeah,
and
that's
then
what
you come back. Yeah.
Jason Campbell, District 5. Here we're getting a cost less in Valley Springs. I'm wondering if that's the best we can do. I think a Safeway, something like that, advocation for something a little nicer would be cool. Also, I don't think telling the truth, pointing out the truth and facts are necessarily should be labeled as bashing. Like I just stated, I'm a District 5 resident, constituent of Clyde, and I am very unhappy, downright disgusted. To quote my supervisor, and I'll even censor that because I do have respect for these chambers, this is a big steaming pile of BS that's going on coming out of his chair. This is not allegedly, maybe we can get Sheriff Rick to comment on it. I read the sheriff log, it really happened. Clyde cannot learn from previous actions. During the last election cycle, he threw a fit at Marvell, was asked to leave. I don't know why he thinks it's okay to come back now. Just absolutely disturbing the actions that he is allowed to do in public, in the chambers, just in general. I cannot believe that we have somebody like this that is making decisions that affect the lives of everyone in the county. He should not be involved in any type of decision-making process. He does not have the mental capacity to do this job. He does not bring his tools to work. He does nothing but agree with Dennis. I'm glad to sit down and listen to anybody that can justify or explain any good that he's done for anybody in the county. He does nothing but cause trouble and harm to the county and its citizens. I'm called for it before. I'm here respectfully calling for it again. Clyde Clapp, I would love you to submit a resignation letter. It is time for you to admit that you do not have the capacity to perform properly at this job and step down. Oh yeah, code compliance. Code compliance is a joke right now. What are they doing? We're talking about budgets today. We're facing a $10 million structural deficit. Why do we have 5 code compliance officers? What are they doing right now? I've been gone. I've submitted multiple complaints. There still has been nothing done about the swimming pool at the end of my road. Still water in it, still no fence around it,
still a very attractive and immediate
Thank
health
you.
and public safety
Thank you.
risk. Thank you.
I was shocked and aghast to see on Facebook Mr. Clapp's support of Area 12. This is the same Mr. Clapp that raged a war because some entity gave Common Ground a vehicle, a four-wheel vehicle, so they could go up into your snow company, Supervisor Oliveira, and serve your constituents. Pure and simple. I don't know what this guy's doing on the board. I can't believe people voted for him. He's just, and before I go on, I want to talk about the bashing. What does our president do every day? He's over 615 days in the White House, and every day he is bashing somebody. The whole thing just totally escapes me. I'm really saddened by our country. I've told you before, I got drafted after college. I served. I defended our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. You folks need to do the same thing, and you need to write letters. But the last comment has to do with code enforcement. You got Mr. Short running around doing this and doing that and so on and so forth. But he's not taking care of the code violations. And I brought it up last week, and I asked you folks on the board to do something about it. He continues to get away with stuff because you let him. Thank you.
It would behoove all of us to be careful about what we read on the internet of any kind, because sometimes it's not true and sometimes it's twisted. And, you can read it and it gives you maybe a hint about what's going on. And I believe I was there when Clyde Clapp supposedly had a fit or whatever. I don't do social media, so I don't know what's out there, but there was no fit at all. He has made himself available to the public and put himself out to do that so that they can talk to him. And a lot of people came by on Saturday and they talked to him, and that inflamed the other side of the issue, and so they went to the Marvell management and had Clyde, called the sheriff's department and had the sheriff's department talk to him, and he immediately broke down his canopy and put it in his truck, and I helped. And so I really take exception to some of this stuff that's being said today, because when a sitting supervisor makes himself available to the public and he is not taking up any considerable space, and there's a lot of empty places in the parking lot, I do not see the problem. And I understand that he is at a funeral of one of his constituents today, a man named Dave Garcia. He's a very much beloved person in the West County area and other places, and I didn't know him personally, but I think he was a great guy from what I have observed at public meetings. And so that's where I sit. Thank you.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments. Rick, you have something you want to say?
Good morning, Sheriff DiBasilio, and I apologize for not being here at staff time. I think it was last month, the board and public had asked if I could do monthly updates on our marijuana eradications. So I wanted to do that real quick for you. 2017, we did 68 grows. To date, we've done 36, and the guys are out doing one right now. Last year, 59,700 plants were eradicated. To date, we're at 61,000 plants, actually 61,800. Last year, we eradicated about almost 15,000 pounds of processed marijuana. To date, we're at about 3,400 pounds. Last year, we recovered 35 pounds of concentrated cannabis, and to date we're at 205 pounds of concentrated cannabis. Last year we had 58 arrests and or citations, and to date we're at 28. Last year we collected 41 firearms, and to date we're at 14 firearms. And again, the guys are out today. We've been averaging 2 to 4 grows a week. And to give you an idea of how the grows have been done, we right now are at 51% of the sites that we've eradicated this year were never registered, and 49% were sites that were previously registered. To give you a quick rundown on how, because I know this has been a question a couple people have asked, we receive a tip. The tip is sent over to our investigation. We have a young lady, one of the people that you gave us as an extra hire. She goes through the tips and she sends them out to the supervisor. Supervisor sends them to an investigator through the marijuana team.
Sheriff supervisor.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We're not.
No, different supervisor. The supervisor of the marijuana team. How's that? The supervisor of the marijuana team. Good catch. Good catch. After it is sent to the sheriff's supervisor, that supervisor decides whether that's something that should go to code compliance, because it's a small backdoor grow. They have 8 plants or something, or it's not in an indoor enclosure. Or it gets assigned to go on a flight list so that we can do overflights to review it. Let's see, we assign directly to an investigator to call back the reporting person to do follow-up. And then if a new site is discovered during the recon, it's added to the complaint log and evaluated. And if it was a previously registered site, the information is noted on the complaint form. The way we end up doing our search warrants, what we'll do is the decision to pursue a search warrant is based on this criteria. It's immediately observable violations, the size of the grow, law or code violations, danger to the public, and environmental violations, the maturity of the plants, the duration of the time left to take action, the overall seriousness of the violations, and the quality of life for the surrounding areas, and the number of complaints that we've received, and then again the staffing available. The rest of this I won't go into. This is confidential information, but basically that's how we come to our terms of whether we go after a grow or not. There's no rhyme or reason as to whether it's a registered or an unregistered grow previously. It's all done based on these criteria. So I just wanted the public to know that, because I've had questions on how do you go after a grow. I don't do this. This is all done through the marijuana team. They're the ones that make these decisions on which grows. And again, as like I think I've told you guys before in the past, it's like going to the hospital in the ER room. The more urgency the more quickly you're going to get responded to. So it's the same thing. Environmental problems, complaints that we're getting, those types of things, the size of the grow, again, the maturity of the plants, and whether they're going to be able to process them or not. That's how we go through the process of deciding which grows to go after first. So, any questions? And again, I apologize for not being here at staff time.
Supervisor Mills?
I have two questions for you,
Sure.
Sheriff. First of all, there are ongoing investigations. Once you've completed an eradication, sometimes there's additional circumstances that will lead to a continuing investigation on that particular site. Am I correct?
Absolutely.
So you're working with the district attorney then on some of those?
Yes.
Went through back to staff announcements.
Pardon me?
I just wanted to clarify, this is staff announcements.
Yeah.
And so any substantive discussion between, we really need to bring back as an agenda item, rather than it being just merely an announcement for informational purposes.
This is a staff announcement. I went back to staff announcements for him.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. I'll leave it at that then.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on to consent agenda.
Consent agenda items are expected to be routine and non-controversial. They will be acted upon by the board at one time without discussion. Any board member, staff member, or interested party may request removal of an item from the consent agenda for later discussion.
Does any board member wish to remove an item from the consent?
Number 7.
Supervisor Mills, number 7. Supervisor Olivera, your light's on.
It is. Give me a moment, please. Number 9.
Supervisor Olivera. Number 9, any member of staff? Any member of the public? Hold on. And number 8, we have number 6 and we have number 8. Okay?
5.
Item number 5. All right, bring it back. Looking for a motion for items 4, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
Chair, I'll move the remainder.
I have a motion by Supervisor Mills. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Olivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes 4-0-1. Mr. Favli, you have item number 5 you wish to speak about. Let the clerk read it first and then come forward.
Item number 5 is for agriculture. Authorize the board chair to sign an agreement between the County Department of Agriculture and the California Department of Food and Agriculture, CDFA, for Pierce's Disease Control Program Glassy Winged Sharpshooter for fiscal year 2018-19 and 19-20 in the total amount of $37,548.30.
Mr. Favli, can you come to the microphone and ask your questions?
Just a general question. I read last week where you would ask counties or departments to cut their budgets by 5%, and believe me, I am all in favor of eliminating, pests that are destroying our county, among them being the glassy winged sharpshooter. But there's $37,000 right there. I just want to know what this is about. That's all.
I think the Ag Commissioner is behind you, and he can answer that question. Kevin, you want to?
Mr. Falvey.
It is.
Good morning, Board. These glassy wing sharpshooter contract is done without any expense to our county. The agreement is with Department, the California Department of Food and Agriculture. We supply the people, and they supply the funds to effectuate the whole program. There is absolutely no money, no county money spent for this at all. And we've been doing this particular contract for over 25 years. It's an agreement with the CDFA to detect glassy-winged sharpshooter in our county, which is a carrier of Pierce's disease, which affects grapes. It's a virus on grapes. And like I say, fully funded, no cost to the county. If we didn't do it, we would actually have less revenue in our budget, and we would probably still have pretty much the same expense because these people would still be employed. So it's a total benefit to my department and to the county without any expense at all. And that's why it's an agreement with another entity.
Thank you, Kevin. Any other questions, public questions on this? I think Kevin did a good job explaining it. If not, I'll bring it back to the board. Al, you have a question?
Just a quick comment on this. I'm glad that that they're able to get the glassy wing sharpshooter eradicated. I'm kind of curious though, sometimes we confuse government, what government does with what private enterprise does. Wouldn't it be a benefit to the grape industry to fund this type of work? And does it make sense that they would? Because there seems to be a real benefit. And is there a necessity to run this through government and then back to government for government to do it when actually it's an ongoing problem that industry has? And that also raises the question about other things that we're doing, running through government to solve problems that ought to be solved by the people that are involved with it or who would benefit from it. Just a thought. Maybe we can examine that a little closer at another time. Thank you.
Al, I'd just like to comment a little bit on your thought there, just to clarify a little bit. The grape industry statewide actually does provide funds for this program. For all of the tons of grapes that they sold, they're assessed, on their own, they voted to assess a certain amount of money that they send to the state for them to do the program. Cool. So there is industry support for this program statewide, because glassy wing sharpshooter is a statewide problem, mostly in the south, and then it comes over to Tehachapi's every now and then. We've found it in Sacramento, but it's a statewide program, fully funded, supported by industry, funded partially by industry, and to the benefit of everyone. So it's good for us.
Thank you.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board. Look for a motion. I have a motion on this item.
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion by Supervisor Oliveira,
Second.
second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 401. Moving on to the next one. This was pulled by Bonnie, item number 6. Madam Clerk.
Item number 6 is Human Resources authorize the board chair to execute an agreement with GovernmentJob.com, Inc., NeoGov, for applicant tracking, onboarding, and performance management online services in the amount of $56,729 for a term of 12 months.
I had several questions. Don't have a computer, can't look this up. So are we talking about background check for employees or applicants for employees? And who does this work at this point? And is this a full-time position for someone? And does this money come out of the general fund?
Okay.
$56,000.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Director. The NeoGov contract, which is governmentjobs.com, is their website and owner of it. I discussed during our recommended budget hearings, and this website will allow our applications to be online. It will allow us to reach a larger applicant pool, and the ease of candidates to be able to apply for our positions will allow us to have a larger applicant pool. And as I had spoke to many times, our applicant pool is drying up, and we're having a very hard time getting people to apply for our positions. And having a automated system will just make it so much easier for us. Also, having the automated system will allow us to have workflows. It will take a lot of work off of my staff, and it will take a lot of work off of the auditor's staff. So it will allow more work to be done with less time and effort. And so the $56,000 is coming out of the general fund, but it was approved during recommended budget hearings. And this item is for the chair to sign the actual contract.
Any other public comments? Okay. Bring it back to the board, look for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I have a comment,
Okay.
a question for Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Hawkins, you've just explained the benefits of the program as far as our pool for prospective employees. Is there any cost savings with this computerized system?
Well, the cost savings is in the work of the staff because of the fact that right now our applications are all manual. And also we have to, the time of department heads. So right now department heads have to come to Human Resources and review the applications. With this system, they will be able to review the applications from their office, and then there's a workflow attached to it. And so the time savings is tremendous for both the HR staff, department heads, or whoever is reviewing their applications. And not only does this have an applicant tracking, it also has a module for onboarding. And so there is paperwork that new hires fill out. This will be an automated workflow that will save the employees in the auditor's office time, as well as my staff. So it will make the workflow more efficient for the employees, and then we can do other work that has a value in it. And so there's a tremendous value in this product.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins.
You're welcome.
Supervisor Mills has a question, I think.
Don't run away. I mean, since we're here, otherwise I was going to talk to you personally about it. But the point is that with this tool, you'll be able to come back in 6 months and give us some idea of how many applicants you dealt with and give us some idea of performance metrics.
Yes, the reporting tools are, tremendous, and so that I can set up matrix and to make sure I can track how quickly we are getting candidates processed through a recruitment. I can see where there are bottlenecks in a recruitment, and then we can put a recruiting policy in place. So if a position is open a certain amount of time, then we can better identify where the bottlenecks were, where the problems were, or do we really even need that position? So there's we can analyze the positions more accurately with a tool like this.
And you can, I'm sure, agree with me that in some cases with recruitment, timing is everything, and that you can lose potential applicants simply because there's bottlenecks and they move on. They just look for other things.
Because of the applicant pool drying up, there are so many different jobs available out there that if we are not reaching out to the candidates immediately, then they're going to go away. And with this tool, there's a better communication process, and we can get back to them immediately through email, through text, things like that, to let them know we received their application, that we're interested in getting them in for an interview. And so the process, we're constantly communicating with them. That's a lot easier than trying to get a member of staff on the telephone when we have 65 plus open positions. Sometimes it's difficult to communicate as well as we should, where this will be automated.
And I know you probably don't know the answer to this question, and I'm going to ask it because I do. The current unemployment rate in Calaveras County last reported is what? 3 point?
I know we had 3.8. We were running right with the state, which was 3.9.
Yeah, 3.8%. That's record territory for the county.
Exactly.
So that's why we're having difficulty finding workers, as is that everybody's working.
And I heard a report on the news yesterday stating that people are just not commuting as much as they used to for a long list of reasons.
So commuting is a part of the issue. If we can hire them more locally, the chances are they're going to stay here longer, or they're going to stay here and
Yes.
work here. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Motion for a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Supervisor Mills,
Second, Mr.
second
Chair.
by Supervisor Olivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 401.
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 7, Madam Clerk.
Item number 7, Human Resources adopt a resolution authorizing the disability retirement of Correctional Officer Mandy Dozel.
Supervisor Mills, you pulled this item?
Yes, sir. I would like to amend the resolution on page 64. Under the now therefore be it resolved, it says public employees retirement law for performance of his duties in the position to her duties in the position.
Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry, I was looking for
Page 64.
Yeah.
In the resolution, it says now therefore be it resolved. If you go down to public employees retirement law for performance of his duties, I would like to amend it to her duties.
No, okay. That's fine. Can we do that? We can stop, we can move forward, just saying, you know, amend that to her. Okay?
Public comment, and then I'll just make a motion with the amendment.
Yeah. I saw Supervisor Olivera's light on, I thought you might. Okay, any public comments on this item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back.
Chair, I will move this item as amended to change his to hers in the resolution.
Okay, I have a motion by Supervisor Mills,
Second.
second by Supervisor Olivera. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 401.
Should it be his to her?
We just,
Said hers.
His to her. All right, moving on. Moving on to item number 8.
that's all right.
Madam Clerk?
Item number 8, Integrated Waste Management, authorize the Auditor-Controller to refund $4,385 to the California Department of Resources Recycling and Recovering, CalRecycle, as a result of unexpended grant funds in fiscal year 2015-2016.
Yes, I realize this is a few years back. How much was the original grant, and what was it allocated for? And are we returning this money because we didn't recycle enough or spend enough, or why are we returning money to the state?
Mr. Moss?
Brian Moss, Administrative Office, Integrated Waste Management. The answer to those questions are the entire award was $16,253. The funding is used for purchasing items such as recycling bins for, like, as example, the City of Angels is looking at that now. This is an annual, or this is a recurring grant. So unfortunately, as the board is aware, we had our fire and Butte Fire, and so in 15-16, at that time, Public Works was not able to expend the entire amount of funds.
Okay. Any other public comments on this item? Seeing none?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment for Mr. Moss. Mr. Moss, as you probably are aware of, we lost our recycling contractors under the state contract for a period of time. Did this affect this grant? This is totally separate from that?
Not to my knowledge. This is a separate grant that, like I say, that we write to just go ahead and it's actually based on CalRecycle giving us monies for what they call the beverage container recycling litter cleanup program. So no, this is actually a separate issue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Looking for a motion?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
A motion by Supervisor Olivera on this item.
Second.
Second by Supervisor Mills. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 401.
Thank you.
Item number 9, Supervisor Olivera, you pulled this item.
I most certainly did. Thank you, Mr.
Can we
Chair.
let the clerk,
Sure.
sorry, let the clerk read it, please.
Item number 9, Administrative Office, adopt a resolution naming the Calaveras County Arts Council as the official arts agency and state local partner for Calaveras County to receive funds from state or federal grants.
Let Supervisor Olivera speak, and then you can speak.
I did pull this item. I'd like to give the opportunity to hear from our Council of Arts from Calaveras County. And ma'am, I believe that it's my inquiry, so you're not limited to 3 minutes of public comment.
Well, thank you. I will try and keep it to 3 minutes because beyond 3 minutes, most of us get boring. No offense to anybody, but I'm Kathy Mazzaferro, and it is my joy to serve as the Executive Director for the Calaveras County Arts Council, and I came before you today just to thank you for your resolution recognizing the Calaveras County Arts Council as the official Calaveras County Arts Agency. This resolution allows us to apply for grants of all sorts from the state of California and specifically. The programs that we provide, and they're included in your packet, programs from Music in the Parks, Ovations, our passionate support of arts education throughout all of our public schools throughout the county, as well as our artist studio tour, are all, and Al, you'll like this, they are all self-funded. We receive no government funding for these music programs, for the arts programs. We bring them to the citizens of California, of Calaveras County and California through the generosity of the businesses, the sponsors, and the services here in Calaveras County. You have all of the programs. I gave you each a little dog tag that has a little flag on it. That's because this Saturday we have our second annual night at the USO Dinner Dance. It's a trip back to the 40s. We're going to hose down the town hall in red, white, and blue. We're going to serve a meat and taters dinner. We're going to have dancing to a big band. We're going to have a no-host bar and a dessert auction. The money we raise from this event is earmarked to help provide art lessons for veterans. Now, when I say art lessons, I don't just mean what you would standardly think of, which is drawing or ceramics or that sort of thing. And I need the board's and the public's help to help us get the word out. These grants for veterans are also available for them to take a wood carving class. Go to Delta and take a class in decorative metalworking. Something that's arts related, but that can then be in your tool set, your skill set, to help acquire a job and make things better for our veterans. Or just take a class in art, because that 2 or 3 hours when you're unplugged from everything else and you're plugged into drawing or painting, it's amazing the clarity of vision you have when you plug back into real life after 3 hours of art. It's just extraordinary. This last weekend we had our annual artist studio tour, and we pulled in people from all over Northern California visiting art studios from Arnold to Valley Springs, from Moke Hill to Glencoe to Murphy's. And again, all of these programs are self-funded. The grants we receive from the state basically cover our administrative costs. Myself and my assistant, and we both theoretically work part-time. But I just wanted to come before you, give you your packet so that you'd know what we are about, what we're doing. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to mention, I've been working with Mr. Lutz and with staff. We received a bequest from the estate of Paul Moeller earlier this year, who you, especially all of you who've been on the board for a while, know he was our TV man for a long, long time. And after a great deal of discussion, our board decided that what we should do is replace the ratty old carpet that's currently in the gallery with new laminate wood flooring. We got bids, we went through all the processes, we updated our lease, and with help of council. And so in October, we're going to have Pinnell's Carpet One come in and install all new laminate flooring so that the artists, the visitors, and the citizens of Calaveras County can have an even more professional looking art gallery, So come and see us at 22 North Main Street. Come dance with us this Saturday night. Even if you don't have time to buy a ticket to the dinner, pop up at the door. I promise I'll let you in. And you can go buy a drink or bid on a raffle prize, because you can't have a fundraiser in Calaveras County without opportunity drawings. They're not raffles, they're opportunity drawings. But again, I just wanted to come before you and say thank you for the resolution, because it helps us to keep moving forward and to keep the arts alive in Calaveras County. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Any public comments?
That's a hard act to follow. One suggestion I think our taxpayers like to see, it's too late now, but perhaps next year there can be a poster contest for little kids on Constitution Day, and with a drawing and prizes. And I'm sure that can be privately funded. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
We're already there, Al. We're going to have a poster contest for local kids throughout Calaveras County, because we're also working with staff to possibly bring artwork to the other parts of the administrative services. And one of the first things we thought of was, we're going to ask the kids in Calaveras County by March, which is Arts Education Month, to bring artwork on the subject of cooperation for the back room where all of the supervisors meet, where we don't see you.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board. I'll look for a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion by Supervisor Oliveira. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Supervisor Garamendi. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-1. We are going to take a 15-minute break. Clerk?
10:35.
All right, we're back from break. We're going on to the regular agenda at this time. Madam Clerk, item number 14.
Item number 14, Human Resources, adopt a resolution appointing Joshua Pack to the position of Public Works and Transportation Director effective October 13th, 2018.
And Judy, this is you.
Judy Hawkins, Human Resources and Risk Director. And today I'm bringing before you a resolution for adoption, appointing Joshua Pack as our Public Works Director. Of course, we brought to you several qualified candidates on the 20th to interview, and it was a direction from the board to bring back a resolution appointing Joshua. Joshua is a very energetic manager that I think will bring an energy to Public Works that will be able to influence the staff. He'll be able to create a succession plan within Public Works, and I think we'll see a lot of exciting things. And instead of me standing here telling you all the things that I already know, I will let Josh come up. And I also want to give a big thanks to Matt Boyer, our interim Public Works Director, who was instrumental in assisting Human Resources in recruiting a new Public Works Director. I think we're going to see some new and exciting things out of Public Works, and I look forward to the coming days. Josh?
Morning, Chair and members of the board. My name is Joshua Pack. It's great to finally introduce myself to the public. I know I've had the opportunity to chat with you. And before I do want to pass on my thanks to Tim and to his staff, have done an incredible job bringing me up to speed on some of the issues and concerns with Calaveras, as well as some of the opportunities that are here. A little bit of background from me for the public. I come with a robust experience in public works, about 2 decades. Almost all of that's been in public agencies. My last 6 years has been as the principal civil engineer in Nevada County, very similar to Calaveras, rural, a lot of the same issues that you're dealing with or Nevada County is dealing with as well, where I oversaw both the engineering and road maintenance divisions there. This is a logical and an exciting next step for me. And I think one of the things that I'm most excited about is to work with the staff and the group here. It's one of the things I've come away with is just how impressed I am with the folks that are in place, how dedicated they are to the county and to the community. I have some ideas, I think, as well. Some of the things that are near and dear to my heart are transparency and accountability to the public. There's a long list of projects that are needed to be delivered. A long list of services is something that I'm dedicated to. If we're doing well in those services, we're meeting the citizens and residents' demands. So it's something I'm excited about. My near-term plan is to establish roots here relatively quickly. That's actually what I'm doing after this. I'm going down and looking at some homes and getting that sort of thing set aside. But for the most part, I start October 15th. Looking forward to work with you if you do adopt this resolution today. And between now and then, I'm open to answer any questions you or the public may have. Thanks.
Thank you, Joshua. Board comments, questions? Supervisor Oliveira?
Josh, how are you on bridges?
I'd like to think I'm pretty solid. We have a pretty robust bridge program, not quite as many bridges as Calaveras. We've got 43. I've delivered, last year alone, we delivered 5, which for us is pretty unusual. Usually we do 1 a year, but we've been very successful in recent years, not only in getting federal grant funding, but delivering them in a timely manner. We delivered 3 bridges that were critical on major collector routes in the county. We delivered those from cradle to grave in less than 3 years, which in this sort of environment, especially regulatory, it's something that's that's extraordinary. And I'd love to take all the credit. We have a really good staff. We have great consultants. We have another docket of projects and bridges coming on the next couple of years, but it's something I'm really comfortable with, working with Caltrans, working with our folks, the various regulatory agencies, working with our consultants and the public, not only to deliver these bridges, but also to establish consensus on how we're going to do it and the manner in which we're going to do it. So something I'm comfortable with, and I'm looking forward to bring that expertise here to Calaveras.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
I'm staying right here.
Well, thank you for stepping up and coming to Calaveras County. We have some great homes along a lake with docks that you can put your boat in the water, down in Copperopolis if you're interested. But I would appreciate the opportunity for you to take a look at our projects on the COG list and take a look at our projects in the capital improvement program and say, based upon your expertise, are these the things that make the best sense and we can move them along? So I know that it's going to be a soft transition, and I appreciate Matt's willingness to stay on and provide that expertise to help you as well. But we're here to support you 100%. The core projects that are there are still going to be there, and we know you'll do a great job.
Thank you, and I'm very much looking forward to that challenge, and I think part of my job is to make sure that you're informed and aware of what's going on as well, and working with the public and making sure that folks are engaged and active and familiar with the project. So again, I think a lot of these challenges are challenges that I think we have the right folks in place, and I think this is going to be an excellent opportunity to kickstart a lot of those projects and get a lot of these needed projects and services to the community. I'm looking forward to it, Supervisor.
Supervisor Garamendi.
Matt, I'd like to welcome you aboard. Congratulations, pending our vote here, but I think you're in good shape. Welcome aboard, and I look forward to working with you. I really want to thank Matt for his contribution over the last several months. Much appreciated, and they're always great neighborhoods, and we'd welcome your family in District 2 as well.
Thanks, and I do want to say one thing. Matt's been incredible in this process. I've probably been his ear probably about 3 or 4 times, probably about 4 or 5 hours total, asking everything from large picture stuff to in the weeds stuff, and he's been very gracious of his time and just a wonderful asset. And as someone who's coming here, why would I not take advantage of his expertise and experience and getting me on the ground, hitting the ground running? It's something that I'd be a fool not to take advantage of, and I'm grateful with the board and with the CAO and staff and the assisting in that process.
Yeah, welcome. Mr. Chair, one quick comment.
Sure.
I'd like to personally thank Matt for his endeavors and his efforts in getting several projects that were done quickly on an emergency basis in District 3. You've done a great job so far. I know you'll do a great job until we make the transition, but I just want to make sure that we give credit where credit's due. Thank you, Matt.
And so with that, I'll open up to public comments.
Boy, it's almost like daylight. Like, the clouds have passed, and now we got sunshine. And the Taxpayer Association, I'm Al Segala with the Taxpayer Association, and we also would like to welcome Josh. One of the things that we're concerned about is a long-range maintenance plan for our existing roads. This means that you inventory the roads and its condition, and you project when they'll need to be replaced. And we know in between time you patch potholes. We know that that's a lot of time the main thing that we do. But to have a good plan, then it'd be easier to work out what the funding would be for that plan, and you could look ahead for the next 10 or 20 years. So we would recommend that the Public Works Department create such a plan for existing roads. Thank you.
Hello, Ralph Copeland again, District 4, Copperopolis. Welcome, Matt. I spent 35 years in selling pipeline material, water transmission main in the construction industry, so I know exactly what you're going through. One thing I did encounter in my years was political pressure, and I do hope Matt will stand his ground and not kowtow to particular demands from any supervisors who may want particular jobs done in efforts to prevent a recall. So Matt, good luck, and again I hope you stand your ground and stick to your plan and not let political influences affect your decision-making processes. Thank you.
Any other public comments?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be extraordinarily quick. Matt Boyd, Interim Director of Public Works. Three things. One, all your kind words are much appreciated. We have worked very hard, but the credit really goes to our staff that have seized a new day to do some really cool things on each of your behalves as well as the public. Second, we are extraordinarily blessed to have Josh as your new Public Works Director. He has probably a greater amount of experience and talent that he'll bring on day one than probably any public works director this county has seen in at least 2 decades, and so I think that's incredibly fortunate. Third, related to capital projects and your action a couple of weeks ago, recognizing that Public Works is going to be integral to the remaining FEMA project delivery and the Federal Aid Emergency Relief. My office has already set up a separate project delivery group we're calling Special Projects, which will be those projects as well as landscape lighting district and some other miscellaneous things that don't fit in the traditional CIP group. We have a couple of people in that group already and are procuring the resources that'll be necessary to make sure all those projects get delivered next year, and I know that's of great concern to each of you individually, and you took a big leap of faith last week, which I appreciate. We will get those projects done, and to the larger CIP, myself and Steve Borum and Jen Ellis have been going through with a fine-tooth comb the 5 or 6 dozen projects and making some internal recommendations in draft form. Josh and I talked this morning about us presenting that to him as a care package of what we would recommend, let him use his fresh eyes to provide some additional wisdom, and then ultimately there'll be a series of recommendations coming before your board. We know that we can be better in terms of delivering projects, and I have no doubt that Josh's experience will be transformative for the county, so thank you for your time.
And you have an extra hire engineer now on staff?
Steve Borum is that extra hire retired annuitant. He has an hour cap that he has to stay within, but yes, he has. Steve and I have worked together for 20-some years in a variety of different capacities. He's helped us in 3 very important ways. One was to provide fresh eyes in the weed level on each one of those projects. Second is he's helping develop a cost recovery program by which our overhead costs internally can be billable to Caltrans projects. We've never had that before. The consequence of that is that will make money for the road fund and help us with our road maintenance activities. And he's also been very instrumental in our traffic engineering studies. So the four-way stop signs, the no parking, all of those things that require some expertise. He's been growing our capacity in that fashion. So his legacy will be felt for many years to come.
Thank you.
All right, I'll bring it back to the board. I do have a couple of comments. I want to thank Matt for all the work you've done. I've known you before. You were interim director of COG. We appointed you at that time before Melissa came on. You did a wonderful job there, and you did a wonderful job here. I want to thank you for stepping into what you did and doing the work that you did diligently. It's been a pleasure working with you. It really has. And Josh, I welcome you here. I'm extremely excited in the fact that you are a civil engineer and also a traffic engineer. Both will be very helpful, and you have experience in delivering projects. Basically, most of your 20-year history has been delivering projects, and that's somewhat of a problem we've had here in Calaveras County. I really would like to have you develop a very good relationship with COG, because without COG in delivering those projects, it really puts us at Calaveras as a whole behind the ball of getting more federal and state funds. Obviously, if you're an agency that is expending the funds and not moving them around and having languor, it's very difficult, as you know, to get the funding as you want to move forward with projects. So, but if you get projects done, you're going to move up the list to get the funding. So really excited about it, and hopefully you commingle. Matt has set it back up, and work with COG diligently to deliver projects and get the federal funding and state funding for it. So welcome. Thank you. So with that, I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I so move.
I have a motion by Supervisor Oliveira.
Second.
I have a second by Supervisor Garamendi. Do we need a 4/5 vote for this? No? Oh. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-1. Welcome, Josh. Look forward to the 15th. Moving on to item number 15. Madam Clerk.
Item number 15, OES, introduce and waive reading of an ordinance repealing Chapter 2.72 of the Calaveras County Code entitled Disaster Council in its entirety and replacing it with a new Chapter 2.72 entitled Emergency Organizations and Functions, and authorize the publication of a summary of the ordinance.
Good morning, Board. Michelle Patterson, OES Director. This item is essentially required as part of the California Emergency Services Act. Each county has a such ordinance that outlines its emergency functions as well as its disaster council organization. Our current ordinance was adopted in 1975 and, based on my research, has not been amended since. And so what the amended ordinance outlines is the creation of the Office of Emergency Services and the Emergency Services Director, which we now have as a county position to then be the director of the Office of Emergency Services. Additionally, with the revision of the ordinance, we've removed the position of Assistant Director of Emergency Services. That's not one that we have in our list of positions. So now we'll be in alignment with how OES is currently organized and how we currently function in OES. And I think that's all my comments on this.
Any
Happy
board
to take
comments or questions?
questions, comments?
Supervisor Mills?
So, Michelle, we haven't really put any funding in jeopardy by having that in place. However, going forward, you feel that there might be some concern?
Basically, if we're not functioning in alignment with what our ordinance says, then there could be some jeopardy, but with making sure that we're in alignment with what our ordinance says and how we continue to operate emergency services here, we are good to go on all funding opportunities for OES.
Thank you for cleaning it up.
Absolutely.
Supervisor Olivera, your light's on?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Patterson, welcome. Thank you for coming by.
Of course.
How often do we need to revise this by state law?
I don't think it's outlined in state law how frequently it should be revised, but given, when you have reorganization of emergency services or any such event that might require an ordinance like this to be reviewed, then it should definitely be reviewed. And with the fact that we reorganized emergency services last year, it was time for it to be reviewed.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'll open up for public comments. Any public comments?
I look behind me. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. An easy question. What effect does this have on our budget? Thank you.
The current ordinance and the proposed new ordinance or replacement ordinance does not have any effect on the budget. It does allow us to seek grant funding and other additional funding if we were to experience another disaster. So it allows us to maintain funding. It does not cost anything to have this ordinance in place.
Okay. All right. Bring it back to the board. Do we have a motion?
So move.
Motion by Supervisor Garamendi,
Second, Mr. Chair.
second by Supervisor Olivera. Call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0-1. Moving on to the next item. I was asked to take a small break before we go into this item, so I will allow for a 5-minute break. 5 minutes. All right, we're back from break, and we'll move on to item number 16.
Item number 16, Administrative Office adopt a resolution approving the fiscal year 2018-19 adopted budget for the County of Calaveras.
Administrative Officer.
Yes. All right. So for this item, before I begin, I just wanted to note there were a couple changes that had to be made at the last minute, and I apologize for that. The board and public have handouts of what was changed. A number in the staff report was changed, as were two numbers in the actual budget itself that had to be changed. For clarity, we had tried to do a correction on salary on the Board of Supervisors budget that yesterday was pulled back out of the board budget, and then those funds put into the contingency budget. So it impacted budget lines 1010-0010 and 1010-0700 to the tune of about $9,300. So that was the change that I implemented yesterday. The significance to that being that was the only change that was made after the budget hearings, and therefore decided to instead back that out, and we can bring any subsequent changes back at future board meetings.
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I'd like to address that issue, please. In the spirit of full transparency, $9,800 for the Board of Supervisors' salaries. Could you explain why this occurred?
Yes, certainly. So through the course of identifying relevant ordinances, and this has been a problem that we've had in this county for some time with uncodified ordinances, a ordinance was discovered that ties the Board of Supervisors salaries to four elected officials, actually five elected officials: the sheriff, clerk recorder, assessor, auditor controller, and treasurer tax collector. Through that, we were working to try and correct that error to reflect what local law says the salary should be. The The goal instead now is to bring this back in October with actually addressing the board's salary and compensation directly to basically either, per the board's preference, to withdraw that ordinance, repeal it, and instead replace it, or withdraw it and leave nothing in its place. That'll be for the board to contemplate and deliberate on in October. But at this point, I wanted to pull it back out so that we could have the clean budget document to move forward with for today's item.
So if, at the end of today's meeting, if we adopt the suggested budget, that's going to be revised with this issue being discussed in October, and we'll be changing the budget. And I know it's a small amount in some people's eyes, but I want to make sure that we do it right the first time.
It could be changed if the board wishes in October, but at this point, the assumption is status quo, no change.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lutz. Thank you, Chair.
So moving on then to what adjustments were made. So again, we conducted our budget public hearing on September 11th. Through that hearing, we did establish some technical adjustments that needed to be made above and beyond what was already contemplated from the recommended budget. Primarily, those changes were all on the salary, whether it's equity increases or whether it's changes to the elected department heads that were discussed, those being the 4 elected department heads of assessor, auditor, controller, tax collector, and clerk recorder. In total, the amount of the change was $32,088 that changed from all on the contingency budget line. So where we ended then was total budgeted contingencies in this budget being $3,890,078. That is, again, based on any of those changes to general funded departments. I do want to note, though, those changes are putting the appropriation in the budget. What it's not doing is actually approving any of those actions at this point. Those are separate considerations for the board that will be looked at either today in the case of the equity increases or the 4 elected officials, which will also be brought back in October for the board to consider when they consider their own salary ordinance. So just because the board approves that today does not, this budget, I should say, does not mean that those become official. Those do require separate action from the board. If the board were to not approve those, the excess appropriation would then result in salary savings to that budget, which then could be adjusted at mid-year or would fall back to fund balance at fiscal year end.
So we're just setting the money aside, we're not expending it until the items come back in October?
That's,
or we're just appropriating it?
That's correct.
Yes. I just want to make that clear so everybody understands. We're not expending any of it, we're just setting it aside for appropriating it for that. So when it comes back, if we approve it, the funds have been appropriated and set aside to fill in the budget.
Yes, and specifically, I know in the case of the assessor and my office, we did not increase the size of our budget. We followed the instructions per the board to do a 5% reduction, so we made all of those adjustments within our respective budgets.
Dennis, Supervisor Mills, your light's on, you have comments?
Yeah, I have 2 things. One on page 573 of the budget. In Public Works, we still have IWM embedded. Sorry. It's packet, it's your board packet page, I believe, 573.
Do you know what page of the budget book it was? I'm sorry, I don't have the board packet up.
Okay, let me get to it here.
Oh, I think I found it here, yeah.
464.
And yeah, that It's reflected in the budget narrative. It doesn't change the appropriation. It doesn't change anything material beyond, the narrative as originally constructed when we entered recommended budget was reflective of IWM there prior to the board's action to move it under the administrative office. As a procedural matter, my office requested departments to make their adjustments to narratives that they wanted to see, as opposed to necessarily taking a more heavy-handed approach to modifying departmental narratives ourselves. On the administration's org chart, you will note it has been updated to reflect IWM now being under administration. It just wasn't in the change in the department's narrative.
Okay. This will be on packet page 252. It's packet page 361, I'm sorry. Budget page 361. And it'll be packet budget page 252. This has to do with the MCCR fund. In the September 11th meeting packet, it shows it only as a contingency. And I don't recall the board in the September, I've reviewed the tape, and I didn't see anything in our board discussion stating that it would be moved to 5612.
It was discussed almost at the very end of that hearing.
Because I remember bringing it up myself.
You brought it up, yes.
But
and Tim had said that he would move it to that appropriations line.
That's fine.
He didn't call out the specific line item, but he said that he would move that.
My point of my discussion, though, is that that was not done with a polling of the board. That was simply all of those statements that I made at that time. I asked for, there was no polling done on what I was saying. So asking to have it moved, the board needs to decide by direction whether or not they want to put it into 5612.
Well, I guess we can. Yeah, can you somewhat unpack and
well,
county
that's what I was
council
talking
maybe
to-
weigh in on it? Thank you.
But they haven't memorized all the codes?
Yes. This was discussed, and again, the goal being here to move the remaining residual fund balance in the registration fee fund to a refund line so that that could be then paid out. And that was what this action was contemplating, whereas before it was as a basically sitting in contingency as a fund balance.
So this move just puts it in a fund that you can cut a check out?
Yes.
It just puts it in it appropriates the money so that the refunds can be issued.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with it. I think we spoke about it, we talked about it, and it was done. It's for approval now. So we can either say no or pull it out, say no, or we can approve it the way it is. I mean, it has to be an account. We're going to expend the funds. Supervisor Mills?
Well, I was just bringing it up.
That was it? Do you have any more?
Yeah, no, I was just bringing it up. Our overall contingency, when you take all funds minus our expenditures for this year, we're going to be at about a 30%.
Well, the contingency is specific to the general fund.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you take the total funds, which is on page 127 of the budget book.
You're talking about the obligated fund balances that are not being appropriated in this budget year.
Right.
Yes, that
About
are
30%.
restricted. Most of them are restricted funding
Correct.
sources, yeah.
But so that puts us well above the GFOA number of 17%.
Well, GFOA is specific towards discretionary discretionary contingencies. Most of the balances in those funds that you're referring to are not discretionary.
No. And so even in the case of a deficit spending of one-time funds, if it is for a specific use, which, for instance, like a vehicle purchase or whatever, and we're not expected to get the money back to expend it again for another vehicle kind of thing, that's still a deficit in terms of a use.
Well,
Am I sounding confused there?
one-time funding specifically should be used on one-time sources.
Which we are doing.
Yes.
Right, okay. That's all I have, Chair.
Any board comments, questions? Not open to the public. Any public comments, questions?
Alsa County Taxpayer Association. Boy, what a big job. I have one question. This is on page 317. It's Schedule 9. And we have a good deal of costs are in the county as salaries. And we notice that on a 5049 PERS PERS employer, we have a 216-17 actual of $25,000, and then on 217-18 actual, it drops down to $16,000, and then on a 218-19 preliminary budget, it jumps up to $41,000, and then it continues at that $41,000, which was adopted by the Board of Supervisors. But just below that, we have contributions, I think, for employees, which is 50-50 PERS. On 2016 actual, there's nothing shown. At 2017-18 actual, nothing shown. And then on 2018-19 preliminary budget, nothing shown again. And of course, nothing shown again at the adopted by the Board of Supervisors. Maybe that could be explained. Thank you.
Chair, I can help with that.
Okay, that's finished public comments first. Okay. Any other public comments?
Mr. Chair, could you reference the page one more time?
Yeah, on your computer, it's going to be page 426.
Correct.
Thank you, computer.
I have a general question about the budget. Occasionally we hear that the budget is in good shape, but then we also are aware of a $9-point-something million deficit. So I'm curious which it is. Are we in good shape, or are we approaching a $10 million deficit? Also, does this have to have a vote of 4 to pass, or is it a 3-2 vote? Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Any other board comment, public comments? Seeing none? Oh.
Takes me a while to get up. I'm getting old. I have no clue what's going on here right now, but I do know under certain conditions there has to be notice and so forth in this thing. So when you make changes, or it wasn't polled, or it wasn't done in the September 11th hearing, did there need to be something done so the public was advised of it? Or today you're voting now for something that should have been polled or voted on the 11th? I don't know. So I just need to ask you guys, have you met all the notice requirements, and have you followed what requirements are? Because I'm getting confused now as to, oh yeah, well, we should have done that, but we didn't, so it's okay, we'll just do it today. So I don't know. So I'm just asking. Thanks.
Other public comments?
Hello, Board. Trevor Whitkey. I went through the budget, and I noticed on page 77 it indicates that total general fund revenues for this fiscal year are projected to be $60.8 million. Total expenses are projected to be $70.8 million. That can be found on page 68 and page 70. From my calculations, and by my calculations, I mean the calculator on my phone, $60,895,859.30 minus $70,881,417.40 equals negative $9,985,558.10. That's a deficit, as far as I can tell. When you subtract revenues from expenses, or expenses from revenues, and you end up with a negative figure, that's not a good indication of fiscal viability. I also found in the CAO's budget schedules, I'm not sure the page number, but there is a decrease in general fund revenues in from fiscal year 17 to 18 to 18-19 of $6,967,585. That's a 28% decline in general fund revenue, tax revenues. That's an incredibly significant decline in revenues and helps to explain why there might be a $9 million overall deficit. I also found in overall general fund revenues are never mind, we'll leave that one to the side. Oh, here we are. Appropriations. General fund appropriations indicates that in fiscal year 17-18, or excuse me, in 18-19 this year, we're going to be spending $70 million. This is an increase from $63 million, a total increase of $7,707,847, excuse me. So, revenues are down, appropriations are up. These are trends that are simply unsustainable, and it does look like we have a budget deficit. Could you please explain this?
Thank you. Other public comments?
Priority budgeting is a sham. The county is currently in a recession that Dennis, Clyde, and Gary have chosen to impose on everyone while denying its existence at the same time. The shell game that Lutz is playing cannot hide the fact that there is a nearly $10 million structural deficit. Many of us who have watched the board grossly mismanage the county's business since the last election have also been subjected to long-winded diatribes about how important it is to eliminate state control over our budget. This may in fact be true if the real hard choices necessary were in fact being made in order to accomplish this goal, but they are not. Lutz declared the path to achieving this objective required a 5% reduction in spending across every department. This is not even close to what is required to eliminate this growing deficit. The problem of deficit spending is made worse by the fact that there has been no attrition. The majority of this board has chosen to expand the government by 26 positions while eliminating revenue. The only person to lose their job was the Public Works Director, who refused to prioritize a repaving job in D4 over those in the D2 burn scar. How can it possibly be justified that new hires recently brought on for a program that no longer exists are a necessity? The answer is that they're vital to enforcing HOA CCNRs in the suburban subdivisions of D4, under the premise that this will preserve Calaveras' rural quality of life. Another bald-faced lie. What, if anything, could be pointed to as an accomplishment by the majority of the board as having directly contributed to growing the economy? Erecting a couple of glass cases in the back of the chambers, or hiring a building director that thinks containers are structures, thereby allowing the assessor in turn to raise property taxes? This budget is a sham, and the board's only success is having created a new racket. This budget should not be passed.
Other public comments?
Good morning. I don't have much in the way of clearly organized comments for today, and I, for various reasons, didn't have time to go over the fairly opaque budget in detail and try to make sense of it like I would have liked to. However, to a layman at a glance, it does look like you've tapped unsustainable, non-renewable funding sources and allocated them into the budget going forward, which is dubious and questionable in my mind. I also have a hard time not noticing what seems like politicization of the budget, in that, and this is with no disrespect to any of the elected officials intended, possibly outside of the board, but voting for really significant salary increases, I have two comments about it. When you first discussed this at the previous budget hearing, my impression was, and perhaps I'm mistaken, that you were going to give them, the 4 electeds that you gave big raises to, going to give them half of it today, or vote on that, and then I believed you were going to revisit that in January and consider giving them the other half of that raise. And if I read it right, this budget makes that official. Not that you'll be re-examining it come January, but that it's in January they get that raise. And I could be mistaken on most of my points. I'll admit that. But it's striking to me that significant pay raises get made specifically to those county staff who you do not hold the hire and fire over. As Mr. Segala pointed out earlier, they're typically accountable to the public because they're elected, and it's just suspect to me that those happen to be the people who get big raises. I tend to want to read that as, we'll give you fat raises so that you'll like us and work well with us. And as many people pointed out, they were elected just a short time ago with the salary that they had. And again, last thing I want to say is to reiterate, no disrespect to any of them intended. I'm not suggesting that they're being overpaid, just questioning the motives behind it and the timing. Thank you.
Morning again, Jason Campbell, District 5. The question has to be asked, facing a $10 million deficit, why do some of you continue to invoke what I like to call selective emotions? Why do we not feel bad about shutting down an industry and putting out a bunch of businesses and closing down a tax revenue stream, but we still want to feel bad about the 26, maybe it was 29, I'm not completely clear on that, but the extra hires that came about during the urgency ordinance, which no longer exists. So I know it's not going to solve the budgetary problem, but it surely would help. Those 26 or 29 positions have got to go. They are unnecessary, and it's an expense that the county and the taxpayers should not have to bear. It's blatantly obvious that there is no need for 5 code compliance officers. Like I said earlier, I'm not really sure what they're doing. They've backed off of me. I'm not complaining about that, but I also see the inactivity of any kind of response to any complaints that I have also filed. I'm not really sure what they're there for or what they're doing or what they're being paid for right now. It also sounds like the Sheriff's Department's eradication game's pretty weak right now. What did he say earlier? 34 or something? There's, how many did we talk about? 1,000? 1,500 illegal grows going on? Plus the people that decided not to shut down? So all those extra hires got to go. It doesn't make any sense. Why are they still here? Why are we trying to hold on to them? I understand it's not a very nice thing to say to advocate for someone to lose their job. I don't necessarily want these people to lose their job, but the fact of the matter is they were temporary hires. The urgency ordinance, temporary, right? Temporary hires. Why are we trying to keep them? Stop the ridiculous, unnecessary spending. Some of you are running this county into the ground. We don't like it. We're not going to deal with it. We're not going to put up with it anymore. The citizens are going to stand up and do everything in their power that they can, voting, whatever it is. It's time for a change, and we will make it happen. Have a good day.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. You're supposed to be in line in here. We've talked about this. If we're going to be out there, you need to be in line.
A little bit slow here.
Well, you could have been in there while you were speaking.
The $9 million has already been spent out of the equity fund. Budgeted in 2018-19, $9,731,000. Appropriations, $70 million. Dedicated revenues, $61 million. Total appropriations exceed revenue by $9.7 million. And I've got the backup here for that. I also live in Copperopolis D4, and I have noticed an uptick in our HOA trying to fund the county with calls to code compliance. And it can only work so long. If people clean up their act, then there's no more reason for people to come out to copper and code compliance. I'm watching my HOA, lack of transparency, and it's just frustrating that we did have an income, and that income was taken away by people who drink silent poison. So I don't know what you're going to do when we go broke. The county is not good, Mr. Tofinelli, not good at all. Thank you.
Terry McBride, District 2. I'll make it quick. Why do you want to go bankrupt? Why do you want to drive this county bankrupt? I'm not looking at you two. The other one isn't here. But what is the purpose of it? Because there has to be a purpose. When I'm short on funds, I don't spend money because I don't believe in going bankrupt. I think it's running away from your responsibilities in life. Sometimes you have to for medical, I understand that. But why is it you want to drive this county bankrupt? Just a thought.
All right, I will close public comments. We'll bring it back to the board. Do you want to answer some of the questions?
Can I request, before I answer questions, can we have a 5-minute break? I need to confer with council.
5-minute break. All right, we're back from break. During break, I had a conversation with CAO and county council on an item that was brought up by Supervisor Mills earlier, and there was a couple public comments on it. One of the item that was brought up was that when we decided to start refunding the $5,000 to the people that paid for a second time round for permits under the urgency ordinance, the funds were in contingencies. And in order for a county or a public entity to expend those funds that are in contingency, they have to be moved into an appropriations account. And the board never gave directions to the CAO to put those monies into appropriations so Rebecca can start writing checks for those people that paid a second time. It was moved by the CAO into an appropriations account. And so that's where we're at right now as far as this item that was brought to light by Supervisor Mills. And so we are going to, at this time, poll the board on whether they would like to bring that back to us and not have it in the budget we're adopting today, or poll the board to see whether it's okay that the money has now been put into appropriations to be expended and Rebecca to write checks on. If we do not have a 4/5 vote to okay the movement of those monies into appropriate accounts for appropriations, then we'll have to go to lunch and the CAO will have to go in and recraft the budget that's presented to us without moving that money back into contingencies. And then it will come back to us at a later date to be approved, to move it from contingencies into appropriations. And hopefully you're following what I'm saying as far as this particular account and these particular monies that were collected under the urgency ordinance.
Mr. Chair, I remember this discussion we had our last budget hearings, and there seemed to be a consensus, if not a voice vote, to move it over. And there's certainly an understanding, because it had been discussed prior as well, but I thought there was a pretty clear understanding that it needed to be refunded, therefore
we're going to move it from contingencies to
right.
appropriations.
So
yeah.
I'm worried that, why do we really need to have a vote on this poll right now? Because obviously this could, if we change something, this could jam up this whole process for approving the vote today,
well,
right?
if we poll, we'll have a 4/5 vote. If all four of us vote yes, to leave it in appropriations right now, and we can go forward and adopt this budget, and it will be there for her to start writing checks at the appropriate date that we designated. If we don't, again, get 4/5 vote, and this is under the government code, a 4/5 vote, this action to do this right now, then again, he would have to recraft the budget, moving that money back to contingencies in order to get the budget to what we had before.
And then we could pass it by a majority vote.
If I may, yeah, I know this was a question during the public comments, and I figured I could recite the government code. So government code section 29088, which is also part of the County Budget Act, says that after the conclusion of the hearing they're referring to is the budget hearing, and not later than October 2nd of each year, and after making any revisions of deductions from or increases or additions to the recommended budget it deems advisable during or after the public hearing, the board shall by resolution adopt the budget as finally determined. Increases or additions shall not be made after the public hearing unless the items were proposed in writing and filed with the clerk of the board before the close of the public hearing, or unless approved by the board by 4/5 vote. So what the request then is, if the board polls and agrees by 4/5 that yes, we should include that item as refunds in the MCCR or Cannabis Urgency Ordinance Fund, then we can proceed with adopting a budget with simple majority. If not, then if we don't have we would have to do 4/5 vote to pass the budget itself. Or I would have to take this out and amend the budget to put it back on contingency.
Which is going to take time. So just to put everybody aware of it, transparency, what's going on, so people understand. So I would like to poll the board at this
I
time.
have a question, Mr.
Sure,
Chair.
absolutely. Supervisor Oliveira.
A question for CAO Lutz and County Council. Do we owe this money?
As the board is aware, we are closing down and wrapping up the program. And so as the county does final accountings, we are certainly looking at the process of refunding the renewals. And then from that, looking at doing the final accounting of the program as we wrap it up and see it to final completion.
So we owe this money legally, and in full transparency, we need to pay this money back to those people who paid it. Is that correct? Please, ladies and gentlemen.
I recommend that the monies that are in appropriations or in contingencies be moved to an appropriations line item in order for the auditor to be able to cut checks for refunding the renewals, and then allow us to continue on in the process of shutting down the program.
And this money has been placed into a fund that we can accomplish that, correct?
That is what is being proposed, yes.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We don't do that anymore.
We're at board level right now, okay? We're having discussion, okay? We're having discussion.
So you need to see if we have four.
We need to see if we have 4 votes saying okay on a poll. So Supervisor Mills, do you agree to?
Okay to what?
Okay to the present budget with the money being in appropriations and designated account instead of contingencies?
No.
No.
Dennis, can you explain why? Maybe we could work it through.
It's a closed session issue, sir.
Should we go to closed session?
No, what we need to do then, we can take the lunch break, and we can reconvene at 1:30.
Mr. Chair, point of order, you asked for a poll. Maybe we ought to,
We need 4/5 vote, so.
I understand.
Okay,
Maybe
so
we ought to,
Supervisor Oliveira, where are you?
I would say yes.
Supervisor German?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. But we
Is
don't
that-
have 4/5 vote.
We don't have 4/5 vote.
No. So, CAO will redo the budget with that line item, bring it back.